So, our presenter, Jill Hendricks, founded Fiction Addiction in Greenville, South Carolina in 2001. Her lovely store is 2,000 square feet and employs just 3 people, including herself. She's found Edelweiss to be a great way to raise her store's profile with publishers. Today, she'll share some basics of how she uses Edelweiss, how to get your staff involved, and what publicists tend to notice most. Okay, I'm turning it over to you, Jill.
All right, thank you, Linda Marie. And I apologize, you guys, that you can't see me. I figured I would use my desktop computer because it would be easier to share on Edelweiss, but it doesn't have any sort of video with it. So I think what I'm going to do first is test sharing out my screen to make sure that that works. I, of course, just hit something weird and it's not doing well, but let's see. I want to share my screen. I think y'all are looking at like the wrong thing there. Do you see Edelweiss now?
We just see your name.
You just see my name. Okay, let's see. Oh, I didn't hit the button. Okay. What
Yes.
about now? Okay,
Yes.
great. So I thought we would start off by asking everybody just in turn to unmute themselves and introduce themselves and their store and say a sentence or two about how you currently use Edelweiss or don't use it. So I don't know, Raina, do y'all want to start?
Hi, I'm Raina.
Hi, I'm Zoe.
We work at Garden District Bookshop. Personally, I know what Edelweiss is. That's about it. I don't use it for much else. I know it has tons of potential. I basically understand what our owner uses it for, but personally.
Yeah, I think that's the extent of my knowledge too. I don't really even know how we use it, I think. I just know that it's a thing that we can also.
So I look forward to learning lots of things about it.
Okay, great. Rachel, why don't you go next?
Hi, I'm Rachel Watkins, Communications Director at Avid Bookshop, former event director. So I used to use Edelweiss to submit my event grids and love that. And we still do that. And I use Edelweiss. I'm not a buyer, so I use it personally to review books and submit the books to Indie Next, SIBA, and the publishers.
So Rachel sounds like a power user. Okay, let's go on to Serena.
Hi, I'm Serena Wyckoff, Copperfish Books. You can't see me because my computer doesn't have video or speaker. I do use Edelweiss to look at catalogs from publishers. Basically right now just Penguin, and also I hear a lot of noise on the line. Is it me? That's it. Thank you. So I do look at catalogs. We have one staff person who also uses Edelweiss because she used to work at Barnes and Noble, so she's familiar with it that way. We have not been able to figure out how to use it together and work together. I do the purchasing, and she does a lot of reading and blogging and reviews. So I'm very interested to know how to connect with her and work better with Edelweiss with her and get other staff on board.
Okay, well, hopefully I'll have some good tips for you today.
Yeah,
John, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm John Cavalier. I'm Cavalier House.
And are you currently on Edelweiss? Okay, I'm not hearing John. Can other people hear him?
He's not muted, so something might have happened.
Some technical difficulties. Well, until John comes back, I guess I'll skip him and we'll go to Jenna. You need to unmute first.
You're unmuted now.
Hi, yeah, I'm a couple minutes late to the meeting, but I think I clued in that the question is about if we're using edelweiss.
Yes.
I have not used it yet. I'm actually brand new to SEBA as of yesterday, joining under the company that I've been working with for a couple months. So I'd love to learn anything.
Great. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and start then. So the most important part, I think, is to make sure that you get all of your staff signed up for edelweiss. If you're in, your administrator account, whoever the administrator for the store is, if you go into their system, then you can see account users under their profile. And you'll see here all of the users for my store. Now, as Linda Marie said, we only have 3 employees, myself, Grace Ann Johnson, and Melissa Oates. And the others are all in some way volunteers for me, either volunteer readers, family members, people who actually volunteer in the store. And I think that's another option for smaller stores, is if they have really avid readers or friends and family that read for them, to go ahead and sign them up on edelweiss and affiliate them with your store so that you get credit for all of their great reviews that they post. So that's just kind of the basic. You want to make sure that you've got your staff members signed up and that they're affiliated with the store. So you can add a user down here and that put their email address, and then it gets sent an invite with their password. If they already have an account and you're not seeing them here in account users, then you'll need to email support@edelweiss and get them to link the 2 accounts together. So that's the first thing, is to get everybody on. And then the second part is, yep.
Bill, if somebody doesn't have an account at all, does everyone have an account that we're talking with? Okay, I just wanted to make sure of that. And when you
I'm not sure that I have an account, but I will connect with you afterward to make sure that I know what's going on.
Okay. And then when you say support@edelweiss, is the email support@edelweiss.com?
It's actually, I believe, support@abovethetreeline.com.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
All right. So then the easiest way I find to get staff involved with edelweiss is around reading copies, advanced reading copies, because that's mostly what they're interested in, is like, they're fans of authors and they want to be able to get a sneak peek at their first book, at their new books. So the first thing that we did was, we have a ton of reading copies coming into the store, and just like figuring out that whole process was what to do with them. We were almost overwhelmed. So we have a system now where whenever an advanced reading copy comes in, that we put it in edelweiss with a tag. So let me look up, because I just got one from my rep this morning. She gave me Masterpiece by Fiona Davis. Whoops, it helps if I spell it right. Okay, so here is the book. And what I do is I just go and I do tag here, which pops up this little thing, and then I say have an arc, like that. So we do this for all of our galleys that come in, and then we just have a system where we shelve them by month. But then the other thing that you can do with your staff is, if somebody was a huge Fiona Davis fan, you could have them go into edelweiss ahead of time, see if there's a new book coming out, and in my store, they would do a tag, want arc. Actually, that's my tag, but like, say if Melissa wants, she would say Melissa wants arc, like that. And then whoever is entering the galley would see that somebody wanted it. And so instead of putting it on the bookshelf, they would just give it to that person. And so they're getting some, benefit from logging the galleys, is that they get the ones that they want. And it also gives them just some basic familiarity with edelweiss, how to search for a book, how to find a book. All my volunteers do this. So I would say that that might be an easy step 1. And it's really, I can't really see the chat while I'm sharing my screen. So if y'all have questions, feel free to unmute and just ask a question as we go.
And Jill, it's Wanda, I'm monitoring the chat box as well, and I'll break in if somebody has a question.
Cool. So then the other thing that we do is that all the staff is required, all the staff, my 2 employees, are required to do a review for the newsletter every month. And so we've made it a policy that the way that they give me the review is by posting it in Edelweiss. So if, for say, Melissa had read this galley of the masterpiece by Fiona Davis, she would go here to the review button, and she would write her review, like, whoa, this is great, this is the best book ever, like whatever, and she'd write her review here, blah, 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 blah. And then she would, oh, and the other thing I asked them to do is to go ahead and submit it, their reviews, to the publisher IndieNext and SIBA. And I tell them, don't worry about deadlines, just submit it to everybody. If it's, well, SIBA is for, actually Wanda wants everything for SIBA because she wants to know what you're reading. So it doesn't even matter if it's Southern for that one. So I tell them to submit it to everything and let the recipient worry about whether it, fits in the guidelines of what they're looking for. So they would do that, and then they would save the review, which I'm not going to do right now. And then the way that I see them is that once a week, I have a little calendar reminder, and I go into my people, which I have set up to show me my colleagues over here in the filtering. And so I'm seeing all of those people that are associated with my organization, and I see the books that they have reviewed. So I will go in each week and catch up with their reading and see the book. I can see the review. So I make sure that the book is on order, which is easy to do from right here. I can look right here, and let's see if I change this. Actually, so that's fall. Okay, so I don't think I've done this one yet. I haven't done fall, so I don't, is this, sorry, I'm just trying to see. Actually, I don't think I order from this way because that's not, all right. So anyway, I go in and I look at the books and I make sure that I have the book in my system because we're still a little manual, so I import things into my point of sale. But so I'll make sure I have the book in my system, make sure I have it on order, and then put the review in the point of sale system and put it on my spreadsheet for that newsletter. So this comes out in the middle of June, so we'd probably promote it in the July newsletter. So I would put it in the July newsletter. And I think it's important for the staff to each put the reviews under their personal accounts rather than one big store account, because that raises their profile with all of the publicists. And it makes your store look bigger. So it's not just one account posting reviews, but like, as many people as you can posting reviews, and much love. And we have found now that the publicists are starting to send galleys specifically to the attention of, say, Linda or Melissa or somebody, because they've seen their previous reviews and they know that, they like this type of book. So for some of your staff, that can be very exciting for them to get something directed specifically to them, to have a letter specifically from the publicist, to be able to have that direct communication with the publicist. Just like getting author events, like through the regular channels, the other way of getting author events is just to be passionate about something. I mean, I think every bookstore has had a story about how they just raved about something on Facebook or Twitter or somewhere, and the author heard about it and said, I want to go to that store. So doing reviews in Edelweiss is another way. I'm not sure if the authors do them, but the publicists definitely do. And they're the ones who are making the determination for where they're going to send the authors. So let's see. So I've talked about logging galleys and then writing your reviews after you've read the galleys. And then the next thing I wanted to talk about is if you want to try and involve your staff in your ordering process. Some stores do and some stores don't. But if you do want to involve your staff, I think the easiest thing to do is to set up a filter for them. So like, say if you were going to be looking at the Penguin catalog here, which is 564 titles. You don't want your staff members to have to be going through 564 titles the way that the buyer does. So instead, you want to create some sort of filter based on that person's interests. So, you know, let me see what kind of filter we could set up. I usually do subject. And then it takes some, you know, working around with these things, you know, to get something as good as you can. But say you have somebody who's a huge poetry enthusiast. So poetry, that's pretty easy. And maybe they are also, oops, that wasn't what I wanted to do. Maybe they are also a big feminist. You could put feminism in there too. And then you could save that filter and you could say, this is for, you know, I don't know, Kathleen would be the name of this person. And then you can apply that filter to the catalog. If it will let me. Let's see where my saved filters. We said that was Kathleen, right? So now we've taken that catalog just down to 5 titles instead of 564. So in this case, if you've have these filters all set up for your staff based on what they've said their interests are, or what you know their interests are, then before your appointment with this rep, you know, part of your ordering process could be just to shoot an email to all your staff saying, hey, please look at this catalog, apply your filter, and see if there's anything that you're super excited about. So if they are excited, some things that they could do is they could tag it and say, like, you know, Kathleen wants an ARC. They could also maybe write you a note about, like, I really think we should order this book. Because, you know, so-and-so, you know, will like it, whatever. And then with the notes, you just want to make make sure that they're making it only visible to you, depending on what the note is. So that's an important tip. And then with the tags that you set up, there's a way to set up tags so that your publisher reps can see them as well. So I've set up all of my want ARC tags to be visible to the rep, and they can then see that as they're processing my order. Another option would be, it's really easy to email out of Edelweiss. So you do this share and then send email. So you could just have your person, your staff member, contact the rep directly and say, I would really like to have an ARC. It's not great because this system, you have to kind of know who your rep is and type their email in. I think there's another way of doing it that might be easier, but I don't usually do the email system. So we just depend on the tags. And then the other thing I do as I'm going through, when I'm doing my ordering process in Edelweiss, is if I see some tags or I see some notes from people and I want to make sure to discuss it with my rep, then I do my own tag, which is just question, and then I can just filter on that tag, like in the call. So after we go over the rep suggestions, then I'll filter on my tag question and make sure I talk to the rep about everything that everybody wanted me to say. Like, you know, please send me an ARC.
Jill, can you show us how I saw you do it real fast, but how did you pull up a tag? How do you find all the ones that have the word question in them, for example?
Well, it's based right now where I'm in a catalog. So let me unsort this catalog. So right now we have this penguin catalog and we have it filtered by, you know, what Kathleen likes. And then down here in the refine results, I put that I just wanted to see the ones that I had a question about. So if I untag that, I see all 5 of Kathleen's. And then if I tag it back, I only see the 1. What's slightly confusing about this is that if you have no tags anywhere in your catalog, you won't see this menu. So it's a context derived menu. So it only shows up if you actually have any tags listed in the catalog. Okay. And then once you have these filters set up for your employees, they can not only use it to look at slices of catalogs, they can also use it to look at digital review copies if they read that way. Okay, I've got this. This is confusing because I set up a different staffer, but let me find this. Okay, so if we go back to Kathleen, so I can filter all the available review copies based on her interest in poetry and feminism. And this would show you, you know, so that she could just see that at a glance. The other thing about your staff accounts is your buyer account tends to be whitelisted so that almost all of these galleys will show download instead of request. And if your buyer account is not showing that, then you want to contact your reps for your major houses that you want to read from and ask to be whitelisted. So a lot of times I might see, you know, an e-galley available in my ordering account, but the individual staff member that wants to read it may not see it in their account, or maybe they requested it and they're like, it's been a month and I haven't heard back. We share our general account for that purposes and let them log in and download an e-galley. But then I ask that they post the review from their own account, because the more that they build up their own account credentials, the more likely the publicists are to request to approve their request right away. So yeah, so that's that. And then the other way that I use Edelweiss as a buyer when I'm going through and ordering things is that, you know, as I go through and look at books, if I think to myself, you know, I'm not going to order this book, but, you know, it's the sort of thing that 3 months from now, somebody's going to come in and I have this one customer that always wants, you know, whatever, it's a science teacher who's always assigning her kids to read her teen, like high school age kids to read a fiction novel that has disease in it. Like, and they come in and I blank on the spot. I can't think of any books that have disease in it. So I might just put a tag, you know, for that disease, so that if one of those kids comes in, I can then look at my tags and, you know, get a list of books, which even if I don't have it in stock, maybe I could order it for them. So, you know, tags are pretty useful for different things as a buyer as well. The other thing I tend to tag are some of my local authors. We're in South Carolina, we can pull from, we're right by 3 states. So we're South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia. So I might tag something Georgia author or North Carolina author, so that, you know, when I have a school contact me and say, hey, we're looking for an author to come visit us, you know, I can just look at who comes up on those tags. And the way to do that is to go to your tags page here. And to just look at your different tags for, let's see, that's my publisher tag. Okay, my fiction addiction tags are up here. So like Georgia author will show me these authors here. And I think right now it's showing me specifically on one catalog, but there's ways to look at it across catalogs too.
So can you, this is one of, I mean, not everyone, and I see a chat. Okay, you've got a comment. Can you go through the process of creating a tag?
Sure, creating a tag is not hard at all. So say that I wanted to have a tag, let me think of one I haven't used before. So I'll create a tag webinar because I know I haven't used that before. So you just type it, and then you can hit enter or tab, and that turns it into a tag. So one thing that's useful with your staff is to kind of agree on tag names, because otherwise, you know, one person might put webinar and one person might put webinars, and like you just end up with kind of a proliferation of stuff. And every so often I'm not careful and I misspell something. But you can usually, you know, see if you've got multiple tags. Like here, like I've got mom to read and mom to read ? So, you know, you can go back in, and if you're the one that put the tag on the on the book, then you can delete it. If somebody else tagged it, then you have to ask them to delete it. You can see your other people's tags in your organization, but you don't have permission to remove them.
So this is, I'm interested, like sometimes I go through and my tag is like SIBA 18, like these are authors I'm going to pursue for the show.
Sure.
Once I've done that, and how do I go see everything I tagged for SIBA 18 across catalogs?
Okay, let me see if this will work. Let me see. So I think that's working. I just don't have a lot of
It is. You have
okay.
Macmillan and Random House coming up, so I think that's
Yeah.
So can you go through slowly again what you did exactly?
Sure. So I went to the tags page, and somewhere okay. So here, do you see this little line, have arc, and that, minus in the last 3 years? So I was able to, let me see. I'm not sure how I got my in the last 3 years part. Maybe that was, no, well, this tag options is where you get to set whether a tag is just yours or whether it's shared with your organization. And you can also set here, I think, whether you share it with your rep. Yeah, so that would be where I would share. Did I just share? Oh, well, they'll see whatever it is. So in the tag options is where you do that. Let me try doing that all again and see what happened. Let's see, I was at home and then I went to tags. And somewhere where, yeah, sometimes edelweiss, if you don't do something a lot, it can be tricky to figure out how to do it. But their support is pretty good if you're not in a hurry. If you just email and say, I'm wondering how you do this. Okay, that's where it is. See, there's this tiny little calendar here where it says tagged by. So you can say all to see any tag that you ever did like that. And I had chosen Adam to read, or I could choose a different tag, and it's just changing it and then showing you what you wanted to see. So everything I thought might work for BMW for next year. Okay. So
And
maybe
right
at this
next
point,
to that, it says 16 active community. Can you explain what that is? That same little line up there where you put in the tag? Yes.
okay. So I talked about colleagues. Before they kind of set up colleagues, there was this thing where you could friend each other, and you can still do that. We did it within the organization, so I could see each other's reviews. But if there are people outside your organization that are on Edelweiss that you like to see their reviews, you can also follow and friend other users. So if you're always seeing that, much love, that somebody on here is somebody that, always likes the same books you are, you can friend them. I think you might have to know their email address. But if, I'm not sure. I haven't done that in so long, I'm not sure how to do it again. Let's see. Type here to find. Let's see. Active affiliates. I think affiliates might be all of our ABA members. So let me see if I can find John Cavalier. No, let's see. Who else might be? Rachel. Here's Rachel Kaplan from Avid. And there's a way somehow to friend them so that then you could just see all of your, you know, they would show up in your friend list. Yeah, sometimes if I haven't done something in a while, you have to play around with it to figure out how to do it. So I think it's important to know, like, you know, A, what it's capable of, and then you can figure out how to do the exact same thing when you need it. But so affiliates, I think, is ABA member stores and everybody who's associated with those stores. Colleagues are my employee or people associated with fiction addiction, and then friends are other people. So like I had followed Stephanie from Inkwood and Jamie from Flyleaf and some other people at one point in time. And, you know, edelweiss is it's online software, so it can change on a daily basis, unfortunately. And so I sort of have changed how I've used it over time as different features have been added or refined. So do we want to just kind of unmute everybody and open to general questions?
Do you use the event grids?
I do use the event grids. They're very important, of course. Let me see if it will actually pop over to the event grid.
And Jill, is the event grid option available to everyone in the store or just to you?
I think the option is there, but you might not see any grids.
Gotcha. That's what.
Because you have to be on the Publicis distribution list. And even if you're an owner, you might not see any grids if you are not set up on that distribution list.
And so you need to let your reps know that you want to be on it.
Yes.
Okay.
If you have reps, that's the best way to do it, is to, if you're not seeing grids, is to email them and say, you know, we'd like to be on the grid list. These are the edelweiss logins that I'd like to be, you know, on your distribution list. And you can have more than one, I believe, do it. And then edelweiss lets you sort your grids by, you know, these are the ones that are still active that aren't due yet and that I haven't submitted. There's also open ones that I have submitted, my old ones. What I like to do is if there's an author that I'm not going to request, or a grid that I'm really not going to request, like this one's in San Francisco area, so that's not going to work for me. So what I will do somewhere is I will just file that event grid here without submitting it. So if I was going to do a request, I would submit it, but this one I'm just going to file so that when I go back to my event grid page, it's not there. I can tell that I already looked at it. And when you actually do your grids, it's very important that you get them in not only by the due date, but ideally, you know, a few days ahead of time, because usually the process for each publisher is that your sales rep is going to look at the grids first and add some comments on top of yours before they go to the publicist. So you want to give your sales reps easy time and give them, you know, time to actually look at it and, you know, add their comments and not all be last minute. I find that, you know, the sales reps are very influential usually within a house. So after I do my grids, sometimes I'll even email my sales rep and be like, I am really super excited about this grid request I just did. You know, anything you can do to help add onto it would be appreciated. And so to actually do a request, you of course just click make request. This part up here at the top, once you fill it out, it will just stay there for every grid request you do. And one of the problems is you forget to look at it. So every time that you've had a really big event or you've done something different that you've never done before, you might want to use that as a trigger to go back and look at your general event profile and see if you need to update it to include that information, you know, that sort of thing. I have a reminder to at least do it once a year, but even more than that would probably be helpful.
Yeah, it says you're currently the president of SIBA.
Yeah, we need to do that. Let's see where it is. There we go. President of SIBA. All right. Of course, I don't know if it will save since I'm not actually going to request John Kerry. But anyway, so then if you're going to do the request, you would put in here your request. Anything personal that you can relay about your connection with the author, like if you've read and loved every book they've done, if they've been a staff pick, if you met them at SIBA, like I put that in there, if you happen to know they're from the same hometown as your dad, you know, anything personal that's really going to make the publicist take note and be different from what everybody else writes is helpful here. And I also put in, like, you know, the type of event I'd like to do, but that we're also open to other suggestions, other possibilities. Publicists usually want to sell books. Sometimes they want just people and not books, but usually they want to sell books. So they tend to respond well to the idea of a ticketed event with the book included in the price because they know that's a guaranteed sale. Or if you have some partnerships, we do some partnerships with a couple of libraries where they get the author for free, but they agree to buy 100 books from me. So, you know, that usually turns out for them to be a lot cheaper than if they went to the author directly and paid their expenses and their honorarium and that sort of thing. So it's been a win-win for both of us. So sometimes when I'm doing a proposal for that, I could say, and we think this would be a great, you know, authors to work with our library partners who will agree to buy 100 books, you know, for the event. So then you can put all of that into your attendance numbers and your sales numbers. And I know some people really, really inflate those and then they say, you know, oh, the publicist is happy with whatever we end up getting, but I try to be fairly honest with mine. Like, you know, if I think I'm going to do 50 people and 50 books, then that's what I put. I might put 50 plus, you know, a little upside there. But I try to be fairly realistic. And so sometimes before I even do the event grid request, I will call my sales rep and ask them if they know what they're looking for. Do they know the amount of sales and attendance they're looking for? Because if I can't get 500 people and that's what they want, you know, I don't want to waste my time or their time. Sometimes your rep doesn't know. Sometimes you can look up on the author site and see other stores that they've been to, you know, in the past, and you can call a store and just chat and ask them, you know, how they did with the event. You know, if you don't have any idea and you're not sure.
Jill,
so I try and do.
Oh, sorry. Yep. Are you comfortable sharing a past grid that you actually submitted and?
Sure. So these are some that we recently submitted. Let me see. Which one has a lot of requests? And I can come down here and filter just on what I requested. So I don't know if you could see this. We requested Ron Chernow. And I didn't do a ton of research on this, so I'm not sure if the attendance of 150, I mean, you know, he's a pretty big author. That might be like, you know, a drop in the hat for them. They might be looking for more like 500 people. Let's see. I requested the Reagan book because we're here in Republican territory. We've done a lot of Republican events. We've had Ainsley Earhart, Nikki Haley, Ben Carson, Marco Rubio, and Trey Gowdy. So I put all of those in there. You know, if I'm going to do it off-site, I mentioned that. Let's see what else.
And then
so
I'm
a big fan. Yep.
And then when you submit a request like this, what's the process after you submit? What happens?
It is a black hole, Wanda.
Okay,
It goes out into it goes out into publicist land, and you never hear back anything unless maybe you get the author, and then you get an email. Hey, we saw your grid request, and you said you could do
and when
300 books.
When you do get an author, what would you say is the time frame between the submission and the email that you get? Is it months?
I haven't really tracked that. Let me see. Let me see if I can. Let's see. This is for fall authors, right?
Right.
So if I was going to do an October event, early October, then I would expect to have heard at least 2 months ahead of time. So September, August. So 2 to 3 months ahead of the event is when I would expect to hear. Although, sometimes you get asked to do last minute things, but the normal setup, like, right now I'm working on one September event, but mostly in some August. So 3 to 4 months, if the publicists are organized and, setting things up, or so 2 to 4 months, I'd say. The earlier, the better from my perspective. And sometimes if I have a deadline, I'll put that in the event request. Like, we can work with the library on certain events, but they have a very, very long lead time for their newsletter. So I'll put that in the request. I'll say, and we're happy to partner with the library, but they would have to have this set up by X date, to kind of jog them a little bit.
Okay. Does anyone else have any thing they'd like for Jill to go over, or questions about things they've heard? Jenna, are you just feeling totally confused?
I'm not confused, but I definitely don't know what I don't know yet. So,
right. So Jenna, I'm going to spend some time with you, like we said, later.
Yeah, but I still think this was, honestly, sitting through this and learning how intricate it can be in a helpful way, and how it actually could get my staff more engaged, period. It's a better sales technique than if someone just told me about it. So it was helpful.
Good. I have a question. Oh, what about folks? Do any of you feel like some publishers are more attentive to your edelweiss activity than others?
So this is a question to me?
And or to everyone but you. And then, do you want to show everyone the new homepage layout?
Okay. I find that with publishers, that once you've kind of built a relationship with a publisher, that they're more, that you will get a lot more response to your request. And part of that is because you're going to put in your request the other authors by that publisher that you have hosted. If you don't already do that, that's a key tip, is to put the other authors by that publisher that you've hosted, so they can actually look up in their system your sales records and verify that you're saying, that you sold the amount that you said you did. If you're always just putting other publishers' numbers, they can't really verify that information on their own. So I think once you have a good event with a publisher, then you want to kind of stay in your comfort zone. So if it was a middle grade children's event, go after more middle grade children's authors from that same publisher. Put the other event that you did and how great it was and that sort of thing. We had that happen with Hachette, where we had a great middle grade event, and then we got a bunch of their other middle grade authors. And so it's just worked really well. The authors had a great time. They told their publicists. The publicists, kept us in mind for the next author. So I think you can totally build. The other thing to keep in mind, though, is that especially at the senior level, a lot of the publicists will switch houses from year to year. So feel free to follow that publicist to the other house. Like, if you had a good relationship with them, continue doing your requests at the old house, but also, stalk them to the new house and say, remember me? Like, we worked so well together when you were at Hachette, and now you're at Simon & Schuster. Like, who can you send my way now? And that way you'll just double your your relationships, and it'll be great.
And here's a question. Wondering if Jill's staff is working on Edelweiss while working in the store or at home on their own time.
We are in Edelweiss all day in the store. I actually use it kind of like a lookup. You know, when I'm trying to get, I used to use Ingram all the time to just get publication information and stuff, and now I'll just go to Edelweiss. You know, the reviews that staff write, they can write them in the store. I think that they mostly write them at home because I encourage them to write them right after they finish the book so they remember everything they loved about it. And I tell them, you know, if the book is pubbing in, what's it now? Okay, it's April now. If the book's publishing in September, write your review the minute you finish the book. Don't wait till September to try and remember, you know, about it. Plus, the earlier they write the review and I can see that they're excited about the book, the earlier it helps me in my ordering process, because maybe there was co-op on that book and now I want to bump up the order and get co-op because we have a staff pick. Maybe I think from their review that it looks like it might be a general read that a lot of people would like, and so I might get another staff member, ask them if they have time to read the book. You know, or maybe it'll make me brainstorm to have an event for this person or something because we have some support for the book. So I like them to do the reviews as early as possible, right after they've read it. And the other thing I tell my staff is that Edelweiss is free for us, but it's paid for by the publishers. And there are so many books and so little time. If you didn't like a book, don't feel like you need to write a review about it. I'm using these for staff picks for the newsletter, so I don't need to know that you didn't like a book. I mean, maybe if I asked you to read it, you could hand it back to me and say, you know, I didn't like it. But I don't need anything to be on Edelweiss that's negative. For our purposes, it just doesn't, you know, seem to have any purpose. And, you know, we're not trying to be neutral bloggers or anything like that. We're selling books, so we only want to sell books that we like. I mean, that didn't come out right. We sell lots of books we don't like, but we only need to, you know, review books that we really like that we're going to feature in our newsletter. Like, I don't have a, you know, books we hated section of the newsletter.
So, do you want to show the new homepage? I like the old one myself, but
I can show it. I honestly never even pay attention to my homepage, so I'm not sure what will be different about it.
You can design it yourself to fit your needs, right? If you're a buyer, you can make it one kind of way. If you're a author grid submitter.
Yeah, I'm just not one of these people that customizes things. So I just tend to go up to the way I know how to find things up here. But
right, but you can,
we can play around with it if people want.
You can change it up in the left-hand corner from the new to the old. But if you're in the new homepage on the right, it says Add Widget. And that's how you can design the different kinds of,
add a widget.
Yeah, the different kind of boxes you want to look at.
I think, Wanda,
I could put my colleagues up here so that I could see. But see, this isn't actually that helpful for me because I still have to click on it to see if they did.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think if somebody's creating a new account with Edelweiss, they'll get the new homepage. It'll default to the new homepage.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And feel free to speak up, folks, if you want to unmute yourself and talk. You're welcome to. Jill, I like that Buzz. Do you ever use that Buzz link?
I don't use it that much because I mostly see the Buzz when I'm within the catalog. Like I can see the much love and stuff in the catalog.
Right.
This would be a way to look at Buzz across publishers, much love like across publishers.
Right.
I could maybe see it being useful, like if you, like we do story time books and stuff. So like trying to figure out what we want to pick for story time, you could come over here and just filter on picture books. Or, you know, if you're trying to work on a section that you're not that familiar with, like you could refine your results by that particular section and then just look at what people are excited about.
And do you see where it says honors over on the left?
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
That's going to be like reviews and starred reviews probably, and indies introduced and stuff like that, I would think.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Jill?
Yeah, so the B
Jill,
means it's a book list starred review.
Okay.
Jill, I was wondering on that Girl Unknown that's popped up right now, if you could go over each of the items on the bottom right to tell people what those mean or where they go.
These right here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so if you want to submit a review, that's this, speaker's bubble with the ... So this is where my staff would go to, review the book and also to submit to the publisher, Indie Next and SIBA. One thing about reviews, your staff sometimes is reluctant to write a review because they just read this fabulous, fabulous book, and now they're being asked as a non-writer to summarize it in like a sentence or two and make people read it. So it can be stressful for them. So anything that you can do to encourage them to be like, I don't care, you don't have to be articulate. You can just be like, fabulous, like a one-word review, like is better than no review. Just get them using it, and then you can start working on like what makes a great review that would get picked for the Indie Next flyer at a later date. So that's reviews. This one is, if you like to organize your reading, you can put the title on a bookshelf. I'm not sure why it's not letting me do it right now. Like, a to read shelf kind of thing. This is where you can write a note for the publisher or just the organization about the book. This is where you could put a tag for your book, and people can do personal tags. So like, instead of shelves, you could have a tag that's one to read or something like that. This is where you just hit it for much love and it automatically kind of rates it as a 9. So if you don't have time to do a review, that's a fast way to do a review. This share is where you can email people or share on Facebook, Twitter, that sort of thing. As a buyer, sometimes when I'm in the catalog and I see a book and I'm not sure whether I want to order it or not, I will actually email the customer I was thinking about and just say, this book's coming out in the fall. Is it something you're excited about? Should I order it for the store? And then you can create collections, or if you're working, like if you're doing a presentation to a book club or something and you want to create a PDF of like books you think would be good for the book club, you can do that. I've never exported to a file, but you could if you needed to.
So SIBA has started sending the Okra picks out to booksellers in advance so that y'all know what they're going to be before they're announced to the public. And I usually do a collection and email that out to everyone. Is everyone getting that? Is that ringing a bell?
Yeah.
No, yes?
Yes.
Y'all are quiet.
Yes.
There are a lot of them are muted.
Okay.
I thought I was.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure you're getting them. I think the collections could be useful if you have a customer who loves a certain kind of book. When you're going through, if you have one of your power customers, for lack of a better word, but you can even create a little collection for them that says, these books are coming out, just like Jill was saying, but if you know that they like certain titles, just like she's refined the results for her staff, you could do that for customers as well.
Well, it looks like we're almost at the end of our time. Does anybody have any last questions?
Can anybody hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hi, I got in late. It's Star. Thanks, Jill.
Hi, Star.
Did you have a question, Star?
Nope, I just wanted to thank you. I did.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. I've just made lots of notes and we'll put them to use.
Well, you're welcome.
Well, one of the
Raina,
great, I'm sorry.
I thought Raina
I was
had
going
a
to say that
question.
one of the great things is that it's being recorded, and that even if you went kind of fast at times, because it's recorded, people have a visual and they can go over what you've done. So I think that will be helpful.
Yeah, and y'all feel free to email me too. My email is jill@fiction-addiction.com. If you're having problems trying to figure out how to do something, you know, just let me know and I'll see if I can recreate it.
So we did have a couple of questions.
Sure.
First, it's obvious why we would want to post reviews of newer books or things that are still about to come out. But what about backlist titles? Does that benefit us at all to post reviews of that?
Well, if you're going to be putting them in your newsletter the same way you are with the front list, it's easier just to have it all in one place. So my staff puts it all on Edelweiss if the title is in the system. Some backlist books aren't still in Edelweiss because the publishers are paying on a per title basis, I believe, and so sometimes they let their backlist fall off. I think it's helpful because sometimes even when you're doing the ordering, you know, and you see your sales track record for a book, and you might be like, so you're looking to order the new book, and you see the backlist book there, and you're like, wow, we sold a lot of copies of that. I wonder why. And you can click on it, and you can see that you had some staff reviews for it, that it's a staff favorite if you've forgotten, you know, depending on how long ago it was.
Okay, so
and then publishers may also look at that right before they're about to do the tour for the new book. They might look at who supported the backlist titles. I'm not sure about that, but they might.
Okay. And earlier you said that the bookstore gets credit for the reviews. What did you mean? Were you just using the word credit, or is there some sort of point system or something involved?
Edelweiss doesn't have a point system. Now, Wanda may give you some points for nominating Okra picks.
You get points
through Edelweiss.
if you submit reviews through Edelweiss and use the SIBA button.
Yeah, so if when you do your review, if you do this submit to SIBA, then you'll get points from Wanda towards the trip to SIBA. And then credit with the publicist in terms of if I send them something, they'll actually do something with it. Y'all may not realize that galleys are actually more expensive to print and send than a real book. So those are pretty expensive dollars that the publicists are sending our way, and they're more likely to send you a galley if they know you're going to read it and then actually write a review or order copies for your store or something. So anything that you can do to kind of, you know, prove that you're actually doing something with what you request.
And maybe credibility is a better word than credit. It increases
credibility.
Credibility.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, I might stop recording if anyone has any more questions.
It's 2:59. Couldn't have done better.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for doing this. This was really helpful.